Night Soapbox. I am your host, Jamarl Thomas. You all know me, of course, as the Progressive Soapbox. So, this was an interesting Twitter beef that took place today. Nobody ever listens to me on the Aaron Matei thing. I guess I've cloaked him in this thing of Buzzsaw, but I've used the moniker of Buzzsaw. Let me see. I think I have a picture of Aaron Matei. I use the moniker of Buzzsaw because I think it's somewhat apt. He is not the person that you want to see in a dark alley. And one person after the next, I've caught a bad one, particularly on Twitter, having a back and forth with Aaron Matei on the Russia stuff because they take the assumption that they are right, that there's something to do with Trump and Russia. I mean, after all, we've been talking about it for 2 years. It has to be reality. And then when they're kind of forced in this situation of, yeah, but let's talk about why you believe that that's the reality, they tend to fall apart. He's not the person you want to see in a dark alley. What I've advised people to do is lower their eyes and walk in the other direction, or at the very least, peacefully and calmly cross the street. Not everybody does this, however, and not everybody takes my advice on this. Most people don't take my advice on this, but hey, that gives me the opportunity to have a show about it. This gets into some of the gossipy aspect of the left, but that's fine. I guess this is also an aspect of the left. Can't do shows about politics abroad and whatnot constantly. So, long story short, one, Cenk Uygur, TYT, apparently. Oh, where's my image? Where's my image? Where's my image? I had an awesome image of this. There he is. I love this picture. This is the best picture Cenk Uygur has ever taken. It's just so badass. I just like it. I like art, man. I like art, be it visual or audio. But I tend to like the way people put things together. Like if it's something where the person has too much air over their head and you want to get across this idea that the person is in over their head, you give them at the bottom with all of the space over the top. There's all sorts of visualistic things that you do in order to get an opinion across without necessarily giving your particular opinion in a verbal way. It's just funny. This is a good picture. I like it. That's it. This one, Cenk Uygur, believes in Russia, Trump stuff. Now the question becomes, what does he mean by collusion? And that's that name, collusion, that word is essentially changed over the course of the 2 years. At first, it was Trump colluded with Russia in order to win the election because there's no way Hillary Clinton could have lost to a reality show host. And that slid, as time went on, to the same business deals. There's some kind of business deal. There's something nefarious there in the business deals, and that is giving clout over Trump for Russia. As long as you come away with the idea that Trump is somehow controlling Russia, or Russia is somehow controlling Trump, I'm saying this poorly. I guess my point is, they've arrived at a conclusion before having the evidence for the conclusion. That's my point. And the worldview and everything else that takes place is put through this lens that Trump had to have something with Russia. So any bit of evidence and any bit of information that comes out, it's fit within that context. Do you remember this? I thought this was funny as all hell. Right here. Do you remember when Cenk Uygur did this? This was good times. This was recent.
This from
In fact, no, let's not do this one yet. Let's go here first. So I see this tweet. Yeah, let's go here first. I see this tweet. Reefer Madness. TYT just called their own colleague, as well as Aaron Matei and Glenn Greenwald, dumb because they're brilliant, meticulous reporting. Me thinks there should be some self-reflection at TYT offices. I suppose Einstein was an idiot too. Hashtag TYT Live. Now you can imagine people have some feelings about this because Aaron Matei he's been a journalist. So is Glenn Greenwald. And asking the question of, if you're saying that Donald Trump worked with the Russians in order to win the election, you need to show something about that. That's not insane. That's not crazy. People just want to run with a particular narrative, and people who are going counter to the narrative tries to get pushed to the margins. It's just these two tend to win those fights. But that's it. This isn't a thing into itself because I couldn't find a link for it, and I was like, well, maybe he said it, maybe he didn't. I'm not quite sure if a link shows up. Great. I didn't have to wait long. Now, what I mean by that is Cenk Uygur intervenes on this. So Cenk Uygur says, I didn't call anyone in specific dumb, so don't be misleading. But I'm stunned that people think there's no connection between Trump and Russia. I do believe they're trying hard not to see the super obvious connection. Super obvious. I love that word. Super obvious. It's super obvious. It's not just obvious. There's a suit with an S on its chest. But that means that there's some reality to this. Otherwise, Uygur wouldn't have responded to this. Like, if you didn't do that. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you said it in a specific word. Aaron Matei is dumb. Which he kind of is making that point. Look, I didn't call anybody specifically dumb. Just saying. I think they're being dumb. This is super obvious. Aaron Matei, ever vigilant, is paying attention to this link. Because I suppose people sent this link to Aaron Matei. And, you know, Aaron Matei had been on the show before, so it's not like they don't know each other. What does super obvious connection mean? If it means that Trump-Russia conspiracy to win the 2016 election, I certainly don't see it based on the evidence so far. I'd be happy to come to TYT with Cenk Uygur to discuss. I would be happy for that also. I would be greatly happy for that. That would be an amazing thing. Again, it all hinges on what do you mean by Trump and Russia conspiracy, right? I've said early on, I think it was like last year, when this show first started, a year before last. If you tell me that Donald Trump has business ties to Russia, fair enough. You know, he's a businessman. And in a businessman, apparently he's been filing for bankruptcy and couldn't find anybody else to loan him money. So, fair enough. I don't doubt that there are business ties to Russia. If you're telling me, though, that within the context of those business ties, that there's somehow Vladimir Putin somehow aided him in hacking the election for Hillary Clinton, then we get to this idea of what does hack mean. Does Facebook and Twitter ads count in the terms of hacking? Like, this stuff becomes a little comical at a certain point. I would love for this interview to take place. Now, I think, if I'm not wrong on this, that Cenk has moved his position on this from Trump and Russia to some kind of business relationship between those two things. But it would be great to have Aaron Matei on in order to kind of hash that stuff out and separate the wheat from the chaff. I do remember this. I remember Cenk Uygur just last week, within the context, again, that Trump is guilty, so anything that comes out is fit within that context. And to some degree, even desperate for him to be guilty, because that would mean that you ran your show for 2 years running with a conspiracy theory. Now, I don't know if Uygur came out and pulled this video. I suspect he didn't pull this video. But do you remember, like, last week where the Cohen paper come out? There's an article that comes out with Cohen saying that Cohen was pushed by Donald Trump to lie to Congress. This is a bombshell. This is one of those Nixonian bombshells. Problem. The media, over and over again for the past 2 years, just like Uygur, having a specific context of the world and getting things to fit within the context of the Trump-Russia narrative, have been wrong over and over and over again. And every time that they're wrong, it's always cutting against Trump, going with this idea of somehow proving the unprovable of a Trump-Russian connection where the Russian government helped Donald Trump win the election. This was Christmas for Cenk Uygur, and this was like his Joy Behar moment. You remember when Joy Behar, there's a note that handed to Joy, she looks at it, she's like, yes! We got him! We're gonna impeach the president! Yes! Do you remember that? And then later on you find out, oh, our bad, we're wrong. Like, if you're gonna be that exuberant and you're wrong, oh, dude, dog, that looks bad. That looks bad. But hey, Joy Behar is not a news person, so fair enough. Cenk Uygur is a news person. Not fair enough. He should have been more skeptical of news, especially when that news has been found to be often wrong. Do you remember this? Come on, come on, come on. Alright, what the hell happened? What's going on? What's going on? Let's shut this again.
Guesses that is why he'll resign. And I have been remarkably consistent on this from day one. So, and here it is playing out. Look, I hope you guys enjoy our analysis. Show's live tonight.
I don't enjoy your analysis, sir, because your analysis is wrong. You're magnificently wrong. You're completely wrong. This story was completely bogus. The Mueller team themselves had to come out and say this story was bogus. But you ran with it. You came outside of your office on, looks like a chilly, wet day, ecstatic that Donald Trump, that you got him, that you finally got him, that you got something where you can pin down on him because BuzzFeed ran with a particular story. And the media organizations ran with the story. Oh, we got him! Trump is going to be impeached. This video, if I'm not, it was titled something like "We Got Him" or something to that effect. What they had was nothing. They had thin air. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't necessarily like Trump. I'm just being honest that between the two, what the super obvious thing was that this video was a little bit over the top. You have been consistent on this, and I would make the point of somewhat consistently wrong. If you want to say that there is some connection with Trump and Russian businesses, fair enough. Again, all of this kind of depends on what you mean by Trump and Russia connection, and whether that Trump and Russia connection that you have now was the same one that you had when you first started this story. I'm somewhat skeptical on that because most people thought that Trump, at least in the media space, had some connection to Russia. I show that video not necessarily to make Uygur look bad, even though it is to make Uygur look bad, but it's also kind of point this thing out that what's super obvious here is that there's a conspiracy theory that people have not been able to prove, but they've been propagating for the last 2 years. And I put forth that they're putting it out there that way, not because there's super obvious evidence about it, but more so because they have a political bend or political dog behind. Political dog behind. Let's see. Krillin terms Russians is so 80s as if are as a family. The term Russians, I know, right? The Ruskies, the Russians. The Russians are doing X, the Russians are doing Y. The Russians are out to get us. We've been toppling governments all over the world. We're in the process of toppling the government right now. And in the process of toppling that government, they're still screaming about Trump and Russia connection and in no way link those two things. Like, why is it okay for one thing to take place but it's not okay for the other? Why is it okay? Or why is it perfectly okay for the United States to take down the government of Venezuela by directly injecting ourselves into their politics? However, Facebook and Twitter ads of Russia, we're going to talk about that for 2 years because that is some attack on democracy itself. Jewish pro what? Did all of these come? Alright, this one is today. 20 million reasons. Cenk tossed away any journalistic credibility TYT had when he told viewers to vote for Hillary Clinton, fired the crowdfunded journalist, and smeared Jordan. His supporting of bullshit has precedence. The only connection between Trump and Putin is in his mind. 20 million. You're talking about the $20 million he got from the Democratic contributor. Well, I guess he was an investor, but, you know, whether it's an investment or a contribution, I guess there's a difference between those things, but the political influence that they give or the clout that it gives, you know, that's where you got to get into the weeds of wondering how much influence is imparted by getting money in that way. Look, the Trump and Russia thing to me is bogus. And over the last 2 years, they have showed buckers. And these guys have ran with what amounted to conspiracy theory, looking for anything they could find to tag him on this. To some degree, Donald Trump running with the birther stuff makes me feel, you know, less sympathetic to his cause. I mean, he was trying to completely delegitimize the last president that just so happens to be the first black president, saying that the man wasn't even born in America. With a lot of people who were hateful and racist who was pretending that that was true. Simultaneously, and almost in contrast, even though the contrast is almost like the opposite, even though slightly not, you have the Democratic Party saying that Donald Trump didn't win on his own merits. He ran because we won because Putin had some influence in the election itself. I mean, some of this is amazing. That this is our political space. But let's be honest. Like, the media has jumped on a narrative, and all of these people, all the way down the line in this process, have somewhat of a dog in the hunt in regards to either they dislike Trump, They believe that Donald Trump is a threat to America. They have certain ties to political, let's say, allies in this. Or they're supporters of the other party. Just saying. Nobody looked at Hillary Clinton's Clinton Foundation stuff with this magnitude. And if they did look at it with a microscope in this way, what horrors would they have found? They didn't care. But all of a sudden they completely care for Donald Trump. Jewish princes. I don't think I've seen this. I've read this one. Corporate politicians are often attracted to money and power. I have both. You know it. Spaceballs reference. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Alright. I'm not going to keep this one long because this one wasn't a long one. But I did think it was funny that they were clapping at each other. And like I said, I would love to see that conversation between Cenk Uygur and Aaron Matei. I have no expectations of that conversation happening. But it would be a nice conversation. It would at the very least nail down where Cenk is. But if I had to give him good advice, walk away. Walk away. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.